board members, including myself, Bill Garretts, Kay Weston, David Hemphill, Beth Ellis, Ann Coleman. We also have Ann Finley from the Library Friends and Foundation and Library Director Claudine Perot. We've had, to my knowledge, we've had no emails concerning tonight's board meeting. Is that correct? Correct.
It is.
Thank you. So we'll move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the minutes of our August 17th, 2020 meeting and the income and expense report year to date, the August 20, and that should read in the agenda 2020, not 2019.
Sorry.
No, my fault. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
I so move.
Bill moves. A second.
Second.
Beth seconds. Thank you. Anyone have anything on there that they want to make amendments or adjustments to, edits? I see none. Please voice vote approval with aye.
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 I think I heard everyone's aye. It passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move to our strategic discussions, reports. We'll have some discussion with the Finance Committee on some of the things that I certainly want to talk about also, but we'll let them bring them up. At this point, I like to open it up for any lessons learned from the CalCon conference from any of the board members. So I'm going to call on you, each one. You can say something or say nothing, but please express one way or the other. So I'll start with Bill Garretts, please.
Well, I have to tell you, I enjoyed this one much more than any of the other conferences because it was so cool to be able to skip around during the sessions, going in and out without blundering through the door and finding a seat. And one of the outcomes for me that I like from this conference is I can dip my toe into library land and see how people think and what their values are and so on. So the trustee sharing session was the main interesting thing there for me. Well, there are two things. One was that the libraries that are part of cities are really being smacked by the COVID budget crisis, laying off staff or planning to lay off staff, cutting hours. So that was a shocker. And the other thing is that in our little breakout group, the other 4 libraries had a huge increase in digital borrowing, so much so that it was a financial issue for them because they felt obligated to go out and buy digital materials, which we know are really expensive. I'm only going to say 3 things here. The third one that really struck me was on Saturday, and I'm going to say it's about social justice and libraries. It was actually called, wait a second, I gotta look it up. Oh, no, I can't find it. But how to identify, prioritize, and tackle community needs. And that was really sobering because they were mainly, the presenters were from areas that are much poorer than ours are. And it was about how to pick which social issues the library is going to get involved in. So that was pretty profound. And then there was another one I went to on Friday that was about methods of evaluation. And my only takeaway from that is we're doing from what I could see, a really good job of evaluating a program effectiveness, given the tools that are actually possible. That's all. Probably too much for me. Sorry.
Oh, no, appreciate it very much. If you have those jotted down as even a short little memo to Claudine, I think we'd appreciate capturing them, if you don't mind. We have
No problem.
recorded. Kay, I'll move to you next, please.
I appreciate what Bill said and hearing how other libraries who don't have their own tax district are struggling. However, I found I would really like sessions to be identified if they are part of the city or their own tax district, because I find myself wandering when it isn't a tax district. It's just like, you know, I feel for them, but so.
Doesn't really apply to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
That was my big takeaway.
Okay. David.
Well, I was only able to attend a couple because I was more focused on another presentation on Friday. I did watch the one on patron surveys, which I think that we might be doing down the road here. No big information in that one. A lot of common sense things, but it was a good session. And I also did watch an excellent award ceremony where our own John got the Trustee of the Year award, which was very fun to see for our district.
Thanks, David.
There it is.
Claudine, show
Good night.
Wow.
I knew John wouldn't be so gauche as to show his award to all of you, so I held on to it for this moment. And John, I'll deliver it to you next week.
I'll also add, if you haven't read, there's a very nice article in the Trail Gazette. I believe it was Fridays.
I did not see that.
Same
Thanks,
one in both papers, right?
Okay.
Claudine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kay. Congratulations, John.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've had folks sending me texts and emails, and 2 guys on the golf course even made comments today about it.
Cool.
So the
You're
word
famous,
is out. Yeah, infamous. Beth, were you able to participate at all?
I was not able to participate, but I am super curious, and I was looking at Claudine's reflections and some of what Bill said. So I'm really curious about neutrality and social justice in libraries and what that really means in the era of polarization, and thinking about what we're doing with and to serve the community. So yeah, I'm super curious about those conversations.
Perhaps a topic for us to consider for a study session this next year. And Ann Coleman, were you able to participate at all in any of the CalCon?
No, I was not.
Okay, understood. I'm not going to give my full, I've given Claudine a written copy of my bullets. I attended participated in the creating quality surveys. I found that pretty interesting. We've done surveys over the years, and the presenter there, Ann Holland, I think would be an excellent person to give us some advice or help the next time we get around to that. Some really good ideas presented on how to create a good survey. I listened in on our library future. There were 4 different presenters. Gamification, badging, collection analysis, and rural libraries were discussed. The rural libraries doesn't really apply to us. I'm still not sure what gamification is. So gamification, I'm still a little in the dark on that piece of it, whether it would be anything. The badging sounded somewhat interesting, but I'm not sure our patrons would buy into it. So that's something perhaps to discuss. The collections analysis I passed on to Claudine. They talked about a particular tool called Gold Rush And I think she and Kathleen may look into whether that'll be beneficial in the kind of analysis and reports they give to us as a board. I was disappointed in the trustee idea breakout. The group I was in, I thought there were some kind of poor starter questions. But I did share a bit about our study work sessions. It was surprising to me that a number of participants there had never heard of such a thing. They don't do that. So perhaps we gave them something for consideration and thought. And then the core requests talk I thought was pretty good also, in that we have a policy with regard to core requests and a fee, and we might want to relook at that policy a little bit from the recommendations, suggestions that I heard there. And of course, the money, space, and policies. David's was the best presentation of the whole conference. And thank you to Mark for helping him. But David, you did an excellent job. And Claudine even did a pretty decent job on her part on that.
I'll take it, John. Thanks.
Okay. Do you want to share anything on yours, Claudine?
Bill, you had a question? I will. Happy to, John.
No.
Oh, sorry, misunderstood. If there's any questions I can answer from the written report, I'm happy to. I appreciate Beth pointing out my one sort of the disquiet of the moment and how public libraries are engaging with this. And my fear is that it will polarize libraries if we're not too careful. I would like to make sure, to the best of our ability, professionally, we move together and don't allow the polemics of our time to disrupt our work and our collegiality, our ability to serve our communities. So the rest, I hope, are self-evident, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. Gents, if anybody has any questions or any other comments on CalCon. If not, we'll move along. Okay. Thank you very much. Finance Committee. I'll turn to David first. I don't know how you've divided that up.
Well, I wanted to first talk a little bit about Gallagher. I did watch the webinar presented a few weeks ago, and it was a good discussion on overall in Gallagher. Not a lot of new information that we didn't know, but I wanted to make sure it was clear on what Amendment B means and why. Here in a little bit, you'll see it present a resolution that we may adopt. Amendment B will repeal Gallagher. That's actually, the most important thing. But it has two other aspects to it that I want to make sure we're aware of. Is well, the first one, it just takes any reference to the 21% baseline of the residential rate out of the Constitution. But secondly, it also takes, how did I write that? Takes the residential rate out of the Constitution and makes it a statute. Why this is important is because it then allows the legislature to adjust the residential assessment rate. And if Amendment D does pass, Senate Bill 223 has already been passed that will freeze the residential assessment rate for 4 years. So they're kind of already prepared in case it does pass, that they already have that resolution in place to go into effect. So in a little bit here, John will talk about possible resolution of our Board of Trustees supporting this Amendment B resolution.
Right.
The other thing we talked about that you probably saw in the budget report, but I just wanted to highlight Cindy applying for and getting us a DOLA grant reimbursing all of the COVID expenses. And fortunately, the whole time she's been segregating her expenses. And it's a reimbursement type grant, so she will be submitting, the documentation for our expenses to be reimbursed all the way through January 30th. So I just, you probably read that, but I just thought that was a wonderful news that we received up to $60,000 of reimbursement for any COVID expenses. So, and I will wish her a happy birthday in absentia since she's not here celebrating her birthday today.
Okay.
But other than that, John, that was the basics what we were discussing.
Okay. If anyone has not received, hasn't seen the write-ups with regard to the various propositions and amendments, I've received from the League of Women Voters for Colorado a very nice email that has all that. I'm happy to share it. I've already shared it with a number of folks that I know here in town. The Amendment B is the first item there, but there's quite a number of other things. It's going to be a lengthy ballot with all of these things and all the elections as well. So be happy to share those so that if you have groups that you would like to share that with, it would be appropriate from a more individualized basis. So let me know if you'd like to have that.
John,
I would, John,
John, this is Kay. I'd like it if you'd
Okay,
send
you
it.
for
bet.
sure.
I would too, John.
Okay,
I would too, John. It's
So
Annie.
would I. So would I, John.
okay. I'll send it to everyone if they want. Beth, you're registered, I presume, in Colorado. Okay. I'll send it out to the board. Well, I'll send it to, I'll send it to Claudine and she'll send it out to the board. Is that right, Claudine?
That's fine. However you want to do it.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have more discussion around our position on Amendment B in the action items. But I guess my comment is generally, I hope everyone is promoting it if you feel so inclined. Okay, library director report, Claudine.
John, I have a quick question.
Go ahead. Sorry, Bill.
Do you have a rough idea of what the extra COVID related expenses are? I mean, will it be half of the 60,000 or double what the 60,000 is, or just in case you happen to know offhand?
Go ahead, Claudine. Can you answer that?
Bill, Cindy interviewed the staff to see what expenses had already accumulated and what expenses were projected. And even though we knew we may be able to project even 75,000, 15,000 of unanticipated expensive, we were somewhat conservative in our projections in order to be as accurate as we could. So that $60,000 is the extra time, not overtime, of additional staff hours that were not budgeted. And for example, it did not include the recording studio, which we've been using for all of the story times and programs that we've been sharing virtually, because it is not exclusively for COVID related work.
Yeah.
So she's sticking to the letter of the law on this, but it does include, thousands of dollars of hand sanitizer and masks and cleaning supplies. So just to let you know, I wish there was some boomba exciting. No, it's really very dull expenses that do come to a total of $60,000.
Okay.
Huh,
That's the
I didn't
projection.
realize
They
that.
will come to that much.
That's a
Grant is
big-
very specific. The grant is very specific, Bill, about what is covered and what is not. And Cindy's been very diligent in it, and again indicated that should broach that $60,000 mark.
Thank you,
I
David.
had no idea that the extra expenses were that there were so many. So good. Thank you.
Any other questions for the finance committee or any comments from Bill or Kate? No. Okay, didn't mean to cut it short. Claudine, then your report.
Well, I was going to brag about Cindy, but we all just did that. Her report is fantastic, and I hope that it answers more questions and reveals more of what's going on behind the scenes with her. I will tell you that her job title has changed from bookkeeper to accountant, for those of you who notice her signature line. Thanks, Kay. It was her, if you can believe it was her annual. She's been here a year. It felt like our time since January feels like a decade, but I feel like we hired Cindy last month, and she is just cleaning up the house. But so wanted to make sure if there's any questions about her report, I would answer them to the best of my ability. But perhaps the two things I'd like to pull out, John, is something a seed I planted with the board a meeting or two ago, which was we really are planning and will have for the board along with the budget 2021 probably through 2023. I would like to propose, unless something, and it probably will, dramatic changes, we are operating on the same goals that we have been for the past 3, but the objectives are going to be fewer, as I said. So for example, our emphasis on early literacy, which has always been a priority, but it's been one of 12 priorities under the 5 goals. It's really becoming one of 7 priorities from now on. So you'll see more of that. But I wanted to say, if the board disagreed with that, that is my recommendation to you, and that's the way in which the staff is beginning to operate, is we're planning to continue to fulfill the same goals, the same strategic goals from the last 3-year plan, but there will be fewer and more specific outcomes to come out of that work. So I think that was, I kind of buried that in my CalCon takeaway, and I want to make sure you knew that.
Good.
Okay. The second is so interesting to me that libraries have for 25 years said, and I think we do, we own, it's a joke. It's like a business model. We own the 0 to 5, we own the market share for services to the preschoolers. And that may be true, but for any of you who attended CalCon, I realized how easily our library can do the same as every other, which is we do our best to guess what early literacy skills really are so that we can create lifelong readers and library users, but as importantly, prepare them for kindergarten. So I'm just letting you know, if anyone attended the same ones I did, perhaps you were equally astonished that everyone has their own flavor on this. And I don't know that it's right or wrong. It makes it hard for me to know apples to apples, and it makes it it's so interesting. John, I'm going to riff off and come back in 90 seconds. A couple of years ago, you might recall that the state legislators did approve the READ Act, R-E-A-D, and I'm sorry, I don't remember what it stands for, but it provided extraordinary funding for school readiness because our numbers across the state are not great. They're not as good as they could be. And after, somebody can fact check me, $100 million, $200 million of investment, the results were like a 2 or 3% increase in school readiness across the state. Okay, so to say that what I'm chasing is local, I think would be incorrect. I am really fascinated by this, and it is my opinion that our emerging plans and our emerging partnership with the school district, I'm not saying we're going to achieve the results we're seeking, which is right now, 46% of incoming kindergartners by one national test, it's just one metric, are ready to learn. And in the next 3 years, we want to bring that to 70%. Just giving you an idea of our targets. I think it will be very exciting because our population is so small. I can't imagine a better test case for what we're doing than 80 incoming kindergartners over each year for the next 3 years. So to give you a taste of what we're doing, I feel like that's probably the best fleshed out. And we did just submit a grant application on Thursday with Melanie Kozlowski's help. But back to, I have my whole career thought we had clear standards for early literacy in the 0 to 5 crowd. And I've concluded it may not be true anymore. We have to refresh that.
Yeah.
So happy to talk or move on.
Okay, anyone have any questions or comments about any of the administrative report? I was astounded, I think is the correct word. Employee assistance program will only cost us less than $500. Why haven't we been doing it already?
Better late than never, John.
Yeah.
I agree.
I was just amazed that it was no more than that. But anyway, that's great. I'm glad we're stepping up.
I just have a factoid about early literacy.
Okay. Go ahead, Bill.
This just comes from my background as a teacher. There are a fair number of children who just aren't ready to learn to read until they're older, just developmentally, not because of family deficits or anything, but just slower developers. And all of the Scandinavian countries
Oh, that's
don't
right.
allow kids to start learning to read until they're 7. And yet when you look at their literacy rates on the PISA test compared to the US, they're much, much, much higher. So anyway.
No, I think that's, Bill, I think you and I are going to need to drink a few cups of coffee or whatever they drink in Sweden, because you have shared that with me before, and I find it fascinating. And I have said to my colleagues, I didn't know how to read before I got to school, and I love reading. It's not the end all be all, except that we know our kids are not tracking well at some key points in their academic career. And I'm wondering
Yeah, what early literacy programs can do, in my opinion, is work on the phonemic awareness and also the language development and vocabulary and conceptual development, which are all absolutely key to being able to decode things. So anyway.
No,
There's
don't say
lots
that.
of good things to do.
We can take it offline, Bill, but that is what we're doing. That is the goal. And we're not teaching kids to read in the library programs.
No.
Just so you know, this isn't an intensive preschool program for Harvard to be graduates. It's really just phonemic awareness. And here's the other part. Remember, the other value is that I neglected to share. Our numbers for engagement, as you know, in our children's programming in general are down. And we've taken some responsibility, which is there's good news. Some families are going to the rec center when there wasn't one before. That's a good thing, right? There was another positive that I can't think of right now, but Melanie has even shared the number of times our heavy user families are coming in, even before COVID, has dropped in frequency. So we're looking at it as, where's the lifelong readership as well? So I will share that with you and more in the coming months. But Bill, I'm convinced we're on the same page, but we'll confirm it over Swedish pastries.
Right. I think it's absolutely critical. And if you look at the Scandinavian school systems, they have state-funded early childhood starting at age 4, and their programs emphasize language and concept development like crazy. So when kids start learning to read, they have gigantic vocabularies, and they know an aardvark from an elephant. So,
thank you.
Anyone else? Any comments? Any questions on the report?
I will say to Ann Finley, Ann, we could not have submitted the grant in the timeline we did without Sarah Walsh's help.
She's the bomb.
cool.
And with that, we will turn to Annie Finley, for her report. And we have it written. You want to highlight some things or share all of it, whichever you want to do, Annie.
Okay, I could just share. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we're really excited. We got 2 major gifts. I mean, it's all in the report, but I love highlighting that, especially during this time. We got 2 major gifts totaling $25,000, which is great. And then we always have our year-end push in November that will probably bring us up to the numbers that we want in that arena. We have finally completed our board. We have the 11 members, and we're really excited about Sarah Fink. She's our 11th member. And also, I think you all received the membership meeting has been canceled, obviously, and we're doing it online. We have to vote for the slate of officers, and all members need to return their yay or nay to that slate of officers by October 2nd. and also provides an opportunity for you to become a member if you're not, which is, you can be a library lover. And one thing we're going to push next year, if you are a member, is we're going to establish a monthly recurring gift, which the foundation has never had. A lot of nonprofits have a place where you can say, I'm going to give $25 a month. And we don't have that. And we're going to initiate that for members coming up and for everyone who wants to donate to the foundation. I think it's a great strategy. It's a good marketing strategy. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. Bookstore is still doing really well. And we still need volunteers. So that's it. That's all I have, John.
All right, thank you. I would like to emphasize to the board, I know when you came on, this was shared with you, but there is an expectation that all board members are members of the Friends and Foundation, in that you make whatever level of contribution you choose, but you make a contribution on behalf of for the library. It's important when we write those grants, oftentimes, I know. So you should have received that email from Sarah, and hopefully you voted. I turned mine around about 2 minutes after I got it. And that's great on those two gifts. Can I ask you, Annie, were either of those gifts bequests?
Not that I'm aware of. I think they were, I'm sorry, John, I don't have that information, but I'm
that's
pretty
fine.
sure they weren't.
They weren't.
So,
Well, that's pretty good then.
yeah.
And that's something else everyone should consider in your wills. The library, through the Friends and Foundation, being part of that gifting. Anyone have any other questions or comments for Annie on the Friends and Foundation? Okay.
Is it true that somebody called Sarah a member of the Gestapo?
I haven't heard that, Bill.
She put that out on Facebook, didn't she?
Yes.
Because of masks or,
Yes.
She didn't explain it.
oh,
Never mind.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Nothing else on reports, strategic reports discussion? We'll move into our action items then. We have several of them tonight. The first one is the resolution of support for the Colorado Amendment B, Gallagher repeal. Claudine helped by asking our fire chief, John Wolf, is that
You can just say Chief Wolf.
Chief, okay. Anyway, we cherry-picked a resolution that he had as an example. We didn't copy it exactly. This one is specific for our library. I'm not going to read the whereases. Hopefully you have read through the entire thing. I would appreciate after I've read the resolves, a motion to approve. Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Estes Valley Public Library District as follows. 1, board support for Amendment B. The board does express its strongest possible support for Amendment B, allowing the Colorado State Legislature to freeze property tax assessment rates at the current rates for the next 4 years, and to provide for future property tax assessment rate adjustments through state law. 2, public necessity. The board further confirms that protecting all special districts against the adverse impact of the Gallagher Amendment is vitally important and necessary to enhancing and continuing to support the health, safety, and welfare of all current and future district residents. 3, public support, the board urges electors of the district to join in its support by voting yes on Amendment B at the November 6, 2020 election. Now I have a motion to approve.
Aye.
Ann Coleman moves. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is that David?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, discussion. Please.
What will the impact of this resolution be? Or could it be?
It will allow us to express that the board has taken this position. It also allows us to work with other districts, special districts here, to do the same. It does not allow us as a board or as the library to spend any tax dollars because that's part of the law regarding this, but we can put an article in the papers, and that sort of thing. And of course, as individuals, we're encouraged to let our friends and neighbors know our position.
So John, did you say that there will be a publicity effort around this with articles submitted to the newspapers?
That would be my recommendation, that this is expressing that, and
Right.
would put this information in the newspaper, as long as it's not a paid newspaper article.
Right.
Can we put anything on our website?
Yes, definitely. It would go up on our website also. Any place where it's basically free and available for the public to see and know our position.
Anything we would normally do, we can do with this,
Yes.
is the way to think of it.
I would also comment during the webinar that I watched, they emphasized the total nonpartisan support of this amendment. I don't remember all the organizations, but any one of them, the National Federation of Independent Business to unions, have come out in support of Amendment B. They just made a point of emphasizing the support from both sides of the aisle on this amendment. It was really good to hear.
Right, the state legislature, it was bipartisan. Yeah. Someone
John,
else?
Yeah, I just want to say that in the official version that you will be signing along with the secretary, I did correct the item 3 under the therefore. It's November 3rd. I apologize for my rather monthly. You can count on my typos. Thank you for smiling. You'll let me know when it's not funny anymore. I don't do it on purpose. I do apologize.
I should have caught that myself.
Actually, I'm actually paid to find those, John. So I am sorry.
Okay. Anyone have any other discussion as far as you're in favor or opposed to this resolution? I don't see anyone seeking to say anything on it. In that case, I'll call for the vote again. Verbal aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none, so it passes unanimously. And with that, we will direct our director to be sure to contact the other special districts here in Estes Valley to see if they wish to join us as far as item 2 on that, to publicize, put out that all the districts are in support.
Thank you, John. It's that's already in motion thanks to Chief Wolf, and the dialogue has already begun among the various directors. And we got a really helpful clarification from the county manager Hoffman, and just reminding what the limits are. But you know, like anything dealing with Gallagher, it has its complexity. But the bottom line is, we do think it will benefit the entire community. So wish us luck. Thanks, John.
You bet. Thank you, everyone. We will move to our policy committee, Bill Garrett and Beth Ellis, with the second action item, which is an update, or it's actually a new policy addendum on our behavior policy. Everyone has that in front of them. I did not intend to read this. Bill, do you want to make the motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve the addendum to the library behavior policy.
And is there a second?
I second.
And Coleman seconds. Thank you. Okay, do you want to speak to it, Bill?
Yeah, I think this requires a little bit of presentation. The language in this is somewhat different than our usual language in policies because it goes into operational details a great deal, much more so than most policies. And we hope it's a temporary policy, whereas most policies are meant for, well, at least until the next 3-year review comes up. That said, we thought it was important because it gives background for Claudine and the staff in case people oppose some of the behavior requirements that are listed in the addendum. So hopefully when policy review comes up in 3 years, this could be put aside. But
Right.
And the language that's in there really reflects what it's like a tiny subset of all those long operational guidelines that Claudine and the staff have assembled and shared with us. So there should be no surprises in there.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, thank you. I should, for the sake of the recording, I guess, comment that this behavior policy is specific to COVID-19 operating guidelines for the library. And there are 7 specific areas outlined there with regard to that. Anyone else have any comments or questions with regard to this policy? Okay, I see no one seeking the floor. So we will take a vote, again, verbal. All those in favor of approval of the behavior addendum, COVID-19 guidelines, please say aye.
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 All right, I think I heard that. Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item of business is the recommendations from our nominating task force committee with regard to 3 positions beginning in 2021, new trustees. I will, if you don't mind, make the first motion. The motions will read as such. Yeah, I guess we should have a motion. Bill or Kay, would you like to make a motion on each individual, or did you want to make it on all 3? A combined motion.
All 3. Is that okay,
Let's
Kate?
do all 3. Okay, so let me read the motion then this way. Hopefully Joanna can capture this. Motion to approve the recommendation of David Hemphill for a full term 2021 through 2024. For Peter Johnson for his first full term 2021 through 2024. And Lynn Lawson to complete Liz Zorn's unfinished term for a period of 2021-2022, that we make this recommendation to the Estes Park Town Trustees and the Larimer County Commissioners for their approval. So I've made that motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay. So we'll ask the committee to comment on their recommendation.
Well, I just like to comment that Kay and I both thought David Hemphill, it was an easy person to reappoint. But that was before we learned of his emerging career as a TV star, as a Zoom star. But we still support and think he should definitely be reappointed.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, do we have their summary in the board packet?
Yes, your applications are in the board packet.
The applications, but your comments,
Oh.
recommendations.
I didn't
are-
see that.
I apologize.
All right. Do you, Kay and Bill, do you have that in front of you? Would you like me to read them? Or do you want to just speak to the
I have
individual?
it in my head. Lynn,
Yeah, we'll speak to it.
Okay, go ahead. Kay, I think you were going to speak to Peter.
Right. First, I think Bill and I both agree that we feel very fortunate that we can be nominating Lynn and Peter. We're both excited about them. They're very strong candidates, but in a very different way. Peter's background, he's had 30 years with Exxon. Some of it was international, a big emphasis in human resources, but he also did activities in educational at the University of Oklahoma. He was adjunct faculty. And then he also did work at the YMCA and county government. So very diverse background. We felt that he demonstrated a lot of leadership in his career and team building. So I think he'll be a great asset. I'm looking forward to working with him.
Thank you. I think he would prefer that you refer that he worked for Mobil and Exxon Mobil
He
rather
was
than
ExxonMobil.
Exxon.
Yeah, you're right. ExxonMobil. Only you would catch that.
That's all right. I'm sure that's fine. Anyone have any questions or to the committee with regard to Peter Johnston's nomination? Seeing none, Bill, do you want to speak to Lynn Lawson's nomination?
Yeah, well, I'd like to actually, I'm going to say a couple of things are in common with both Peter and Lynn. One is they've had extensive experience with budgets and finance and so on. So our language about that, they'll have no trouble. And the other thing is they both have leadership potential, I think. They're both go-getters and self-starters. So, okay, in regard to Lynn, she, had a long business career. But the most interesting thing is she was, has a lot of nonprofit experience, especially with opera in Omaha. And she was very articulate about how good boards operate and the relationship between the board and the director and those kinds of things. So, and she's really, really interested in this position. I think we spent a lot of time answering her questions about the board and about the library, and they were all, I thought, excellent questions. So I agree with Kay. I think, David and I thought that when Kay and Liz came on the board, we really lucked out in terms of getting really capable, strong board members. And I think that's happened again. I think these two people would be great.
Okay. Any questions for the committee with regard to the Lynn Lawson nomination? See nobody. I would be sure that the board is aware there were a total of 4 applicants. The other 2, Ryan Brouse and Betty Hull, were not selected this time around. I think we were very fortunate to have all of the candidates that we had come forward in the past, oftentimes we've been out kind of looking for people, it seems like. So that's good news. Anything else before we vote?
Well, before we close, Kay and I both really tried to recruit people who would be non-typical board members, especially in the Hispanic community and so on. And Claudine helped with that a lot too. So I think that just needs to be an ongoing effort. We need to identify people and groom them, and I mean also the age issue as well. So I'm going to really keep my eyes open and look for people like that.
Appreciate that information, and I agree with you. That's a good thing for us to be doing. Anything else? Okay, if everyone's unmuted, call for a vote on the nominating task force recommendation and the motion before us for David Hemphill, Peter Johnson, and Lynn Lawson. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? I hear none. Passes unanimously. I believe that's all of our business, unless someone has business that they wish to bring forward at this point that was not on our agenda.
John,
Okay,
before we leave the topic of the recommendations, the next step, who takes it to the city trustee? You do. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So I was about to do the same. Kay, thank you for process clarity. So I will, the summary you all sent me was very selfishly for me. I should have put it in the board packet, but I use your summary to write the letters to the town and the county. I then sign it on behalf of the board, and I carbon copy everybody. And what generally has happened historically is by statute, gosh, is it 60 days or 90 days? 60. Okay. So everyone, what will happen is the town and the county have a long history of receiving your recommendations and being pleased. So there's not been any back and forth. They put your recommendation on their consent agendas, largely they have. And so it's a non-political action that they do, and then they inform us right away. So I think you can expect within the next 30 days that I'll be informed, and David, Peter, and Lynn will receive information, because I'll be giving them your contact information, David, Lynn, and Peter. If for some reason they don't ratify this in 60 days, it defaults to those names. So one of the reasons we as a organization attempt to get these done before October 1st, is that it defaults to January if there's no action by the appointing authorities. So, but everything's been great with the town and the county, and I think by the October regular meeting, we should have an answer.
Yeah. At the latest of November. And just for everyone's benefit,
Anne, would you mind muting?
Muting. Yeah, I'm muted.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So I did contact Peter and Lynn with regard to the recommendation of their names, as well as I've already contacted Ryan and Betty that they were not selected. So I had good phone conversations with all four people. Okay, so our next meetings coming up. Our board study session is October 1st. Can you remind me?
Preliminary draft budget discussion.
Okay.
For 2021.
Right. And then our regular board meeting is Monday, October 19th. Both of those meetings are at 6:30 p.m. and will be via Zoom. Annie, you don't have a board meeting coming up, I guess?
Not until the 26th, I think, of October.
October 26th is your next meeting? Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill, you will be able to attend that?
Yes, and also send a summary of what we've been up to. Library highlights.
Very good, thank you. Claudine, final words, anything I missed?
No, sir.
Okay, I appreciate everyone's participation and trust everyone will stay safe. And we will adjourn the meeting at 7:29.